She thought he was just a quiet old man who couldn't afford transport. Every morning, she stopped her keke and told him, "Come in, no pay today." But one morning, he wasn't at the usual spot, and what happened next would change her life forever. Who was this man, and what secret had he been hiding all along? This is the powerful true-to-life story of Chiamaka, a struggling tricycle rider in Enugu and the elderly man everyone ignored. Once upon a time, in the busy and dusty streets of Enugu, there lived a young woman named Chiamaka. She was just 26 years old but carried the weight of life like someone twice her age. Every morning, before the cock crowed, she was already awake, sweeping the front of the compound, warming water and checking the engine of her old tricycle. The tricycle was her life. It was old. The yellow paint had peeled off in many places. The seat was torn. The steering made funny sounds, and the engine, it coughed and rattled like an old man with asthma, but it moved, and that was enough. She tied her brown scarf tightly, wore her old black jeans, and walked to the keke like a soldier going to war. Her younger brother Somto was still asleep on the mat inside their small one-room apartment. The ceiling was cracked. The walls were stained with old rainwater. No fan, no TV, just a mattress, a charcoal stove, and dreams. Chiamaka didn't complain. She couldn't. Life had taught her that crying doesn't cook food. So she walked every single day, rain or shine. Even when she had malaria, she drove. Even when customers insulted her, she smiled. At exactly 6 a.m., she started the keke. It coughed 3 times before the engine came alive. "Thank you, Jesus," she whispered, pressing the throttle. She headed to Coal Camp Junction, her regular starting point. People were already waiting. Some were rushing to the market, some to offices, others just wandering about. She stopped, picked up her first passengers and zoomed off. Business was moving. She dropped people, picked others, collected money, gave change. Life was hard, but it was moving. But then something strange happened. It was around 7 a.m. when she returned to Coal Camp Junction. As she slowed down, her eyes caught a figure under the old mango tree near the junction. An old man. He looked tired. His shirt was big and dusty. His trousers looked faded. One of his sandals was torn, and he was carrying a small nylon bag, the kind used to carry tomatoes. His hands trembled slightly, and his eyes were sunken like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Chiamaka slowed down and parked her keke beside the road. People were passing him like he didn't exist. Some even looked at him with disgust. One woman hissed and said, "Na so dem go just dey stand for road, dey wait make person pity them. Go and beg now." But the old man didn't say a word. He just stood there quietly. Chiamaka looked at him again. Something about him felt different. He wasn't begging. He wasn't stretching his hand. He just stood quietly. She opened her mouth and gently called, "Papa, where you dey go?" The old man looked at her, then looked away like he didn't want to cause trouble. "Ogbete, market," he said softly, "but I no get any money." Chiamaka looked at the 2 women already in her keke. They were holding bags of tomatoes and onions. One of them frowned. "Abeg, no carry beggars join us so, if it be madman." But Chiamaka ignored her. She turned to the old man and said, "Enter, no pay." He looked at her in shock. "You sure?" "Yes, Papa. Enter before another person take the space." He nodded slowly and climbed in, sitting at the far corner. The 2 women hissed but said nothing else. Chiamaka started the keke again and drove off. As she drove, she looked at the old woman through her mirror. He held his bag tightly and looked out like someone looking at the world for the last time. When they got to Ogbete, she stopped and turned to him. "Papa, we don't reach." He nodded. "Thank you, my daughter," he said softly. "No problem," she smiled. He got down slowly and walked away. That day, Chiamaka didn't think much of it. Just another poor man, just another act of kindness. After all, what was 100 naira compared to a human being's dignity? But the next morning, he was there again. Same spot, same nylon bag, same tired eyes. She picked him up again, no questions asked. Day after day, he kept showing up. She picked him up again and again, no questions asked. Passengers complained. Some mocked her. One keke driver told her, "You don't turn charity home, abi?" She laughed and replied, "One day, someone may carry me for free too." They laughed at her. Some called her foolish, some called her soft-hearted, but she didn't stop. She gave him a name, Uncle J. He never said much. He just said thank you and walked away every time he reached his stop. But what she didn't know was that this old man wasn't who everyone thought he was. There was something deeper behind his silence, something strange behind those eyes, and very soon, everything would change. Chiamaka was not sure why she continued to carry the old man every day. Maybe it was because of the way he looked at her, not with pity, but with pride, with quiet respect. He never begged her. He never begged anyone. He just waited at the same spot every single morning, wearing the same faded shirt and holding the same black nylon bag. She had carried him for 11 days. 11 mornings of enter, no pay. And each time, the old man would simply nod, step into the keke slowly and say one word, "Thank you." That was all. But on the 12th morning, something different happened. As Chiamaka arrived at the coal camp junction that day, he saw him already standing under the mango tree. But this time he wasn't alone. Two boys standing in front of him, laughing and harassing him, trying to snatch his black bag from him. As he struggled, one of the boys said, mocking him, "They are this old man. Remove everything where they valuable for inside that your nylon, or you no go see wetin you go use enter keke. You dey wait for keke abi? In fact, you go use leg waka today." One of them said, while both of them laughed. "Give us that bag," one of them shouted. The other laughed. "He no even get shape. See as he dey wait like saying a big man." Uncle J didn't say a word. He just looked at the ground. Chiamaka stopped her keke and shouted, "Hey, leave him alone." The boys turned, surprised. "Wetin concern you?" one of them asked. She came down from the keke holding her key tightly. "I said leave him." They hissed and walked away. Uncle J didn't even look up. He just stood still like a statue. Chiamaka walked up to him and touched his arm gently. "Papa, don't mind them. You want to go to Obete?" He nodded. "Yes, my daughter." She smiled. "Let's go." As they rode through town, something sat quietly in Chiamaka's chest. A question she hadn't asked before. Who was this man? Why was he always quiet? Why does he never beg? Why does he never miss a day? He didn't look mad. He didn't talk like someone with mental problems. His voice was slow but clear. His eyes didn't shake. He wasn't like the other beggars on the street. Something about him was different. At Obete, before he got down, Chiamaka turned and asked, "Papa, where do you go every day?" He paused for a while and then said softly, "To watch." "Watch?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, just to sit and watch." She didn't understand, but she didn't ask again. That afternoon, after work, she visited Mama Ngozi, an elderly woman who sold roasted plantain not far from the junction. As they chatted, Chiamaka mentioned the old man. "You mean that quiet one where they always wait under mango tree?" Mama Ngozi asked. Chiamaka nodded. Mama Ngozi dropped her knife slowly and looked at Chiamaka. Chiamaka raised a brow and said, "What? That man is strange. He's been standing under that tree for months now, before you even started carrying him." "Months?" Chiamaka asked, surprised. She nodded. "Sometimes he just disappears for a week, then comes back. Some say he's a madman, others say he's a prophet." "A prophet?" Chiamaka blinked. "Yes," Mama Ngozi said, slicing another piece of plantain. "One woman swore that after she gave him water, her sick child started walking. Another one said that her shop began selling after giving him food." Chiamaka looked away confused. "But he never says anything to me. He just sits quietly." "Maybe you're already chosen, my dear," Mama Ngozi said, staring hard at her. Chiamaka laughed awkwardly. "Mama, this one you are talking like film." Mama Ngozi shook her head. "My daughter, Be careful. Not everyone walking on the street is ordinary. Sometimes the poor man you are feeding could be testing your heart. That night, as Chiamaka lay on her bed, the words repeated in her head. The poor man you are feeding could be testing your heart. She turned on her side and looked at Somto, her younger brother, fast asleep beside her. She thought about their life, how hard it had been. No parents, no help, just struggles and survival. And yet, here she was, still finding space in her heart for someone who had nothing. Maybe Mama Ngozi was right. Maybe life itself was a test. And maybe, just maybe, Uncle Jay wasn't who she thought he was. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual. She felt nervous, like something strange was coming. She just couldn't explain it, but she felt it in her body. By 6:30 a.m., she reached Coal Camp Junction. He was there, waiting as always. But today, as he stepped into the keke, he looked at her and said something new. Chiamaka. She froze. She had never told him her name. Papa, how do you know my name? He smiled. I hear things. She swallowed. What kind of things? He didn't answer. The other passengers climbed in and Chiamaka started the keke, but her hands shook on the steering. Who is this man? How did he know her name? What did he mean by I hear things? When they got to the usual spot, he stepped down slowly and looked at her with eyes that were no longer tired, but calm and sharp. Thank you, he said as always. But this time he added, very soon you will understand. Then he turned and walked away. Chiamaka sat still for a moment, her hand on the key and her heart pounding. This was the first day she felt it. Not just kindness or worry, but fear. Something was coming. The sky was still dark when Chiamaka woke up the next morning. There was no rain, but the air felt heavy, like something was about to fall. She sat on the edge of her thin mattress, listening to the silence. Even the roosters hadn't started crowing. She stood up quietly, not wanting to wake her younger brother. He had an exam that day. She boiled water, warmed the leftover beans from the night before, and dressed in her usual faded black jeans and red scarf. Her body moved like a machine, but her heart was far away. It had been 3 weeks since she first picked up Uncle Jay. Every day without fail, he was always there, waiting. Same time, same place, same quiet face. But something about yesterday had unsettled her. The way he said her name, the way he looked at her, the way he whispered, very soon you will understand. It was like he knew something she didn't. Chiamaka shook the thoughts away and stepped outside. She started her keke. It made a loud coughing sound as usual, but it came alive. She whispered a short prayer. God, please go with me today. She started the keke and drove towards Coal Camp Junction. It was just a little past 6:45 a.m. when she arrived, but he wasn't there. She blinked. No old man under the mango tree. Maybe he was late. She waited till 7 a.m. Still, there was no sign of him. She drove a few rounds, picked up passengers and then returned. Still nothing. Her chest felt tight, but she tried to smile. Maybe he's sick, he said to herself. But by noon, her worry had turned to fear. She dropped off her last passenger and dropped back at the mango tree. She came down and looked around. Excuse me, she called out to the woman roasting corn nearby. Did you see the old man that always stands here? The quiet one. The woman looked up. That one. No, I haven't seen him since yesterday. Chiamaka's heart skipped. She crossed the road and asked the newspaper seller, did you see that old man that usually stays under this tree every morning? The man looked confused. Which one? The one with small black nylon. I always carry him in my keke every day. Oh, okay. I know him, but I've not seen him since today. Chiamaka climbed back into her keke and sat for a while. Her head was spinning and her hands were cold. Something has happened. That evening, she didn't return home immediately. She drove to Ogbete Market where she always dropped him off. She parked her keke and walked around. Excuse me, she asked this tomato seller. Do you know an old man who comes here often, wears an old shirt, always carrying a small bag? The woman shook her head. No idea. She asked 5 more people. Nobody knew him. She stopped at the front of a church building and sat on one of the steps. Her legs were weak. Her chest felt heavy like stone, and slowly her eyes began to fill with tears. He's not a ghost, so where is he? That night, Chiamaka couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She sat in the dark room, holding the scarf she once gave him during the rain. It still had a smell, a mixture of dust, soap, and something she couldn't describe. Her younger brother asked her, "Sister, are you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yes, I'm just tired." But in her heart, she was scared. 2 days later, and still no sign of Uncle J. She drove with eyes on the road and eyes on the corner of her mirror, hoping and praying he would appear. But the mango tree remained empty. No old man, no nylon bag, and no thank you. She told herself that maybe he had traveled. Maybe he had family somewhere, but her heart refused to believe it. That evening, something strange happened. As she parked near her compound, a woman from the next building called out, "Chiamaka, you dey carry one old man every morning, abi?" She turned quickly. "Yes, do you know him?" The woman shrugged. "No, I just dey see am sometimes. Be careful, my sister. You know say this Enugu get plenty strange people. Some na spirits in disguise." Chiamaka forced a smile and walked away, but those words stayed in her head all night. In the third day, she sat in her keke again, waiting and watching. The tree stood still, but the bench in front of it, where the man usually sat after coming down, was also empty. That afternoon, she sat at the mango tree for 1 full hour. Her keke was off, her hands were crossed, and her face stared into the street like someone waiting for a ghost. People walked past and nobody noticed her, but deep down she was breaking. Where are you, Uncle J? Was he dead? Was he hurt? Did someone take him? Tears filled her eyes. Then, something happened. A small boy wearing a school uniform came running towards her. Auntie, are you the one that drives this yellow keke?" he shouted. "Yes, I'm the one," Chiamaka responded quickly. The boy stretched out a brown envelope. "A man said I should give you this. He said you will understand." Her hands trembled. "Which man? Where is he?" The boy pointed behind him. "He was there just now. I turned and he was gone." She looked, but the road was empty. She looked back at the envelope. It had no name or logo, just a plain brown paper. She slowly opened it, and inside was a white paper. 7 words only. "Come to Monarch Hotel, room 204, 5 p.m. Chiamaka stared at the words. Room 204? Monarch Hotel? That was one of the biggest hotels in Enugu. Her legs shook. She looked around. No one else seemed to notice her. She folded the paper, held it against her chest, and whispered, "Uncle J, what's this?" Chiamaka sat quietly inside her keke, staring at the white paper in her hand. Her heart was beating fast. The sun was hot, but her body felt cold. She read the note again and again. Why Monarch Hotel? Why room 204? And who sent this message? Her mouth felt dry. She looked down at the road again, hoping to see the boy who gave her the envelope, but he was gone. She looked at her wristwatch and she realized that she had exactly 3 hours and 17 minutes. She didn't know what to do. Should she go? What if it was a trap? What if something bad would happen? She placed the key back in the keke and slowly drove home. When she got to her compound, she didn't even enter her room. She sat outside the compound on a bench and was deep in thoughts. "Chiamaka, you no go hustle today?" Mama Agatha asked when she came outside, carrying a bowl of water. Chiamaka forced a smile. "I'm resting small, ma." Mama Agatha sat down beside her and looked at the paper in her hand. "What's that?" Chiamaka quickly folded it. "Nothing, just paper." But the woman was sharp. "Is it letter from police or customer complaint?" Chiamaka laughed weakly. "No, nothing like that." The woman stood up. This your face don't change since yesterday. Oh. If you see am for mirror, you go pity yourself. Whatever it is, pray first. No let fear catch you." Then she walked back inside. Chiamaka was alone again. She slowly opened the paper once more. By 3:15, she stood in front of her wooden wardrobe, picked out her cleanest clothes, a long brown skirt and a light green blouse. She took her time to brush her hair and wipe dust from her sandals. Her keke was too dirty for where she was going, so she decided to take a tricycle instead. At 3:35, She locked the door of her one-bedroom apartment and whispered a prayer. God, please go with me. She walked down the street and waved down a passing keke. Monarch Hotel, she said softly. The driver turned back quickly. Wetin you go do for there? That hotel no be for poor people o. She smiled nervously. I get something to collect, just carry me. By 12 minutes past 4, the gate of Monarch Hotel came into view. The building was tall and shiny. The glass windows reflected the sun. The entrance had white ties, golden doors, and 2 strong-looking security guards. Good afternoon, one of the guards said. How may we help you? Chiamaka swallowed hard, raised the paper and handed it over. The guard opened it, read it, and looked up at her with surprise. You're the one? She nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The man signaled another guard standing by the side. Escort her inside. A tall man wearing a black suit appeared from behind the glass doors. He looked rich and serious. Follow me, madam, he said. Chiamaka followed him. The air inside the hotel smelled like flour and rich people. The floor was white like ice. Music played softly from somewhere she couldn't see. Her heart was beating louder than her footsteps. She looked around. Rich people, clean uniforms and big bags. She felt like she didn't belong, but she kept walking. They reached an elevator. She had never entered one before. It opened silently and they stepped inside. Room 204, the man said. He pressed the button. The lift moved. Chiamaka almost lost her balance. Jesus, she whispered. The man smiled slightly. When the elevator stopped, the doors opened quietly. Just straight down the hall, the man said, pointing to a long corridor with red carpet. Chiamaka walked slowly. Her palms were sweating, her legs felt weak, and her eyes scanned every door. Finally, room 204. She stopped, looked back, and the man was gone. She was standing alone in the hallway. Her hand reached for the handle. She paused, then knocked. Knock, knock. She knocked again. A voice answered, calm and familiar. Come in. She pushed the door slowly and then she froze. Her mouth opened wide. Sitting in a clean white shirt and brown trousers, inside a luxury hotel room was Uncle J. But he didn't look like the man she knew. His hair was neatly cut. His face was smooth and fresh. His hands looked clean and strong. He was sitting in a fine leather chair beside a round table. His small black nylon was nowhere in sight. Chiamaka, he said gently. Her voice cracked. Uncle J. He nodded. Yes, my daughter. She stepped in slowly, still unsure if she was dreaming. The door closed behind her. She looked around, the big bed, the soft lights, the clean carpet, and the glass cups. What is this place? She asked. He smiled. Sit down, I will explain. She sat slowly on the edge of a chair. Is this really you? She whispered. Yes, but I'm not who you think I am. Chiamaka's heart was now beating faster than ever. She gripped her skirt tightly. Then who are you? He leaned forward, looked into her eyes and said the words that would change her life forever. My name is Chief Jeremiah Okonkwo. I am not a beggar. I am a billionaire. The room went very quiet. It was as if time paused just for Chiamaka to understand what she just heard. She blinked twice, then opened her mouth. A billionaire? Yes, the man repeated, smiling gently. I am Chief Jeremiah Okonkwo. I own several companies across Nigeria. I build schools, I run transport lines, and I invest in hospitals, and I live in silence. Chiamaka shook her head, confused. But the way you looked, the way you dressed, your nylon bag. He nodded. Yes, I dressed like that on purpose. For weeks, I wore rags, waited under that tree. I watched people. I wanted to see something. She stared at him. See what? Real kindness, he said. I've been disappointed too many times, Chief Jeremiah continued. People treat you well when you look rich. They offer you chairs and they fake their smiles. They greet you loudly, but the moment they find out that you are poor, suddenly you are nothing. Chiamaka looked down at her hands. She remembered those mornings, the hisses, the insults, the way she told angry passengers to shift so that her old man could sit. She raised her eyes again. So, you were testing me? He nodded slowly. Not just you, many others too. I stood in that same place for months. Some people looked away, others mocked me. One man even splashed water on me with his keke. Chamaka gasped. But you, he said, leaning forward. You didn't just notice me. You stopped. You gave me space. You told me to enter and you never for once asked for anything. She swallowed hard. But I didn't do it because of what you had. I know, he said. That's why I chose you. There was silence again. The wind outside tapped softly against the hotel window. Chamaka sat still, her mind racing. But why now? She asked. He nodded. Because the time has come. She furrowed her brow in confusion. Time for what? Then for the first time, Chief Jeremiah's voice changed and it became more serious. Chamaka, I need to tell you something that I haven't told anyone in years. She leaned in, her heart pounding. He took a deep breath and said, During my early years, I was kidnapped by people I once trusted. They took my money, tried to destroy my life and left me for dead. I survived, but I stopped trusting people. Even after I rebuilt my life, I hid. I kept my face away from cameras. I traveled secretly. I hired people to pretend on my behalf. Only a few knew who I really was. Chamaka placed her hand on her chest. Then last year, I decided to do something strange. I wanted to walk the streets again, not as a billionaire but as a beggar. I wanted to see if kindness still existed. He paused. And the truth is, he smiled. It does, because I found you. Chamaka didn't know when the tears began to roll. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, still trying to believe it all. Sir, I don't even have anything. I live in a room that leaks when it rains. I have only one brother. I drive keke every day. And that is what makes your heart beautiful, he said. You gave, even when you didn't have enough. You shared your seat, you risked your passengers. You gave me your scarf during the rain. She laughed softly through the tears. I remember. It was the only clean one I had. He chuckled. And that is what makes your heart beautiful. You gave, even when you didn't have enough. It just reminded me that good people still walk this earth. He reached under the table and brought out a small leather bag. He opened it slowly and pulled out a file. Chamaka's eyes followed every movement. I brought you here to bless you, he said calmly. He opened the file and pulled out a sheet of paper. This is a deed of ownership. You now own a brand new tricycle from Innocent Motors. She covered her mouth. Jesus. He brought out a second paper. And this is a full education scholarship for your younger brother from secondary school up to university, paid in full. Chamaka broke down crying. She bent forward, her head on her knees, sobbing silently. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Chief Jeremiah said softly. Your actions already spoke for you. But then he added something she didn't expect. I'm not done. She looked up slowly. Chamaka, you were not just kind, you were brave. Do you remember the day those boys insulted me at the mango tree? She nodded. Yes, I told them to stop. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. What you didn't know was that two of my enemies were watching me that day. They had been trying to find me again. They followed me once and almost discovered who I was. You mean you were in danger that day? He nodded. That day, your boldness confused them. When you shouted at the boys, they backed away. They thought you were one of my bodyguards in disguise. Chamaka blinked. I was just trying to defend you, and in doing so, you saved me. Now, it's my turn. He stood up from his seat. She stood up too, slowly, as if still unsure of what she was seeing. He walked gently towards her and said, Follow me. I have something else to show you. The real gift. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just follow me, he said again softly. And without saying more, he turned, walked to the door and opened it. Two men in suits were waiting outside. A black SUV was parked outside the hotel, engine already running. Chief Jeremiah turned back and with a smile on his face, he asked her, "Are you ready?" Chiamaka took a deep breath and nodded slowly. But little did she know that the next thing she would see would leave her speechless. Chief Jeremiah walked calmly towards the SUV. One of the bodyguards opened the door for him. He turned back and smiled. "Come in, Chiamaka." She walked slowly, still trying to understand what was happening. As she stepped into the car, she sat beside him, holding her skirt tight with both hands. The leather seat hugged her body gently. It smelled of wealth. Where are we going, sir?" she asked quietly. "To show you the second part of your reward," he said with a calm voice. The SUV moved. Chiamaka looked out of the window as they drove through Enugu. They passed her street, her small compound with the rusted gate. She saw it flash by like a memory. She bit her lip and looked down. She was leaving that life behind. But for what? After about 30 minutes of smooth driving, they entered a clean part of the city. The roads were fresh, the houses were painted, the street lights stood tall like proud soldiers. Then, the cars turned into a large compound. As they entered, Chiamaka gasped. In front of her stood a tall, beautiful building with glass walls, golden handles on the doors, white marble floors outside, flower gardens neatly trimmed, and a huge glowing signboard. She read the sign out loud. Chiamaka Transport and Logistics. Speed with heart. She clapped her hand over her mouth. She turned to Chief Jeremiah. "Is this a prank?" He smiled gently. "No, my dear. It is yours." She shook her head, trying to catch her breath. "Mine?" He nodded. "Yes. A real registered transport business in your name. 5 new kekes, 3 drivers already employed, uniforms, company office, logo, fuel account, customer line, and even a website." Her knees buckled. She sat back in the car. Tears filled her eyes. Chief Jeremiah looked out the window at the building. "You are no longer just an ordinary keke driver, Chiamaka. You are a business owner. You manage the fleet, supervise the drivers, and grow the company. And I will support you with my team until you can stand on your own." Chiamaka could not speak. She was crying softly. But I don't know how to run a company." He reached into a small briefcase and pulled out another document. "This is your 3-month business mentorship plan. My team will train you. You will learn management, customer care, money control, and leadership." She shook her head slowly. "This is too much." Chief Jeremiah held her hand gently. "No, Chiamaka. It's just enough for a heart like yours." They stepped out of the car. The other drivers and bodyguards stood quietly in place, watching. The building doors opened automatically as they approached. Inside was even more beautiful. Cool air, clean tiles, golden lights, and a small reception desk with a glowing sign behind it. "Welcome, Madam Chiamaka, CEO." Chiamaka burst into tears again. A woman in a smart suit walked towards her. "Good evening, ma. I'm your assistant manager. I'll help you settle in." Chiamaka stood there, trembling. Then she turned to Chief Jeremiah. "Why me?" she whispered. He smiled. "Because you gave me dignity when I had none. You offered me shelter when I had nothing. You didn't know who I was, yet you treated me like a human being. That, my dear, is rare. That is gold." They went upstairs. The first office had her name on the glass. Chiamaka Okeke, Managing Director. She stepped inside and found a desk, a spinning chair, books, computer, shelves, and flowers. She sat slowly in the chair, her chair. Chief Jeremiah stood beside the door. "From now on, people will enter this room to greet you with respect, not because you are rich, but because you earned it." He opened a drawer and brought out a small blue notebook. "I found this in your keke the day you forgot it," he said, handing it to her. She opened it. It was her dream journal. She used to write it secretly. There were dreams like build my own keke business, send Somto to school, open free keke driving school for women. Tears filled her eyes again. You read this?" "I did. And that's how I knew your heart. Now you can start turning your dreams into plans." They sat in silence. Then she asked, "Is this really my new life?" Chief Jeremiah nodded. Yes, it is, and it's only the beginning. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the 5 keke parked in a line with her company name on them. Drivers stood beside them in matching uniforms. She turned back and asked, "Sir, can I still drive my own keke sometimes?" He laughed softly. Of course, but now you do it as a boss. Later that evening, as she rode home in one of the black SUVs, she passed the mango tree at Camp Junction. She looked at it long and hard, and in her heart she whispered, "Thank you, mango tree. Thank you for standing with me. Thank you for hiding a blessing in plain sight." That night, she sat with Somto, holding his scholarship letter and company documents. They laughed, they cried, they danced, and they prayed. Her brother said, "Sister, how did it happen?" She smiled and replied, "Kindness, Somto. Pure, simple kindness." 3 months later, Chiamaka stood in the front of her office window, looking down at the busy compound below. She had added 2 new tricycles the previous week. She smiled. She was now 27 years old, but her life had changed more in the 3 months than the last 10 years combined. She didn't live in the one-room house anymore. Chief Jeremiah had given her a 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet estate. It had all the facilities that was needed to make life easy. Her younger brother Somto had started school again. The day he wore his uniform for the first time in years, he knelt down and said, "Sister, one day I'll buy you a car too." She hugged him in tears. The workers in her company respected her and called her Madam Chi. But Chiamaka remained simple. This is not just a story. It is a reminder that you never lose when you give from the heart. Chiamaka was just a keke rider with a kind heart, but that small act of kindness opened the door to a new life. So the next time you have the chance to help someone, do it. Not because of what you get back, but because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes, that is enough to make heaven move on your behalf.